The world of Reiner was once bright and full of life. The skies had carried silver ships that moved between the stars, and the ground had been filled with songs of people working together. But now the land shook with fear. The Keth raiders had come many times. They moved like a storm across the villages, taking what they wanted and leaving behind ruins. Fires burned where homes had once stood. The people of Reiner were tired, and their hope was fading. In the city of Saren, which still stood though scarred, the young leader Liren walked among his people. He was not the strongest of the Rhinery, nor the oldest, but he carried a voice that others trusted. He saw the children hiding behind broken walls, their eyes wide with worry. He saw the elders sitting in silence, their faces lined with fear. The people looked at him as if waiting for an answer, but he carried no answer, only faith that their call would be heard. Weeks earlier, Liren and the council had sent out a message. It was a plea that echoed through the deep void of space. The message was simple. We are the people of Reiner. We are under attack. We beg for help. That message had been directed toward the Union, the great alliance of many worlds. The Union had always spoken of unity, of protection, and of fairness. The Rhinery believed that when they cried out, the Union would come. But days turned to weeks, and the sky remained empty except for the shadow of the Keth. Liren stood inside the great hall of Saren, though the hall itself was broken from the last raid. The roof had collapsed in one corner, and sunlight spilled through the cracks. Around him sat the council of elders. Their robes were worn, and their voices trembled with worry. Elder Noran, the oldest among them, spoke first. We have waited long, Liren. The Union has not come. Perhaps they will not come at all. His words spread a cold silence through the room. Another elder, Myra, shook her head slowly. We placed our trust in the Union, but the stars stay quiet. Can we still hope? Liren felt the weight of their eyes. He stood straight, though inside his heart was heavy. We must hold to hope, he said firmly. The message is out there. Someone has heard it. We cannot give in now. But what if no one comes? Myra whispered. Then we will stand, Liren replied, his voice strong. But until that time, we believe. Because hope is the only light we have left. The council did not answer. Some bowed their heads in doubt, while others closed their eyes in prayer. Outside the hall, Liren walked among the broken streets. The air smelled of ash from the last fire, and the sound of hammers rang where people tried to rebuild their homes. He placed his hand on the shoulder of a young worker. Stay strong, he told him. The young Rhinery nodded, though his face was tired. At night, Liren climbed the highest hill outside the city. From there he could see the stars stretching across the black sky. He wondered if somewhere, far away, someone had heard their plea. Did their words drift across the void, waiting for a kind ear? Or had they vanished, ignored by those who claimed to be allies? He closed his eyes and whispered to the stars, please, let someone come. Each day that passed, the Keth grew bolder. They sent their ships closer to Saren, circling like hunters. The people feared the next strike would fall upon the heart of the city. Children clung to their parents, and traders no longer traveled the roads. Life was shrinking, pressed by the shadow of the raiders. Yet Liren would not show fear. He spoke to his people each morning, telling them to endure. He reminded them that help could arrive at any time. Some believed him and found strength, while others turned away, certain that no rescue would come. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in red light, Liren stood once more on the hill. He thought of the stories told long ago, when travelers had spoken of distant races with power beyond measure. Stories of allies who lifted weaker worlds, of fleets that protected the helpless. Were those only tales to bring comfort? He did not know. But still, he looked at the stars, waiting. Far above, in the silence of space, the message of Reiner drifted on. It moved past the cold moons and the empty paths between suns. Somewhere, beyond the knowledge of the Reinery, it reached ears that would not ignore it. But Liren did not yet know this. He only knew the silence, and the heavy weight of hope that had not yet been answered. The council hall of Seren was quiet. The fire at the center of the chamber had burned low, leaving only faint light across the broken walls. The elders sat in a circle, their faces lined with sorrow. They had once spoken with strength, but now their words were filled with doubt. Liren stood before them, his hands folded behind his back. His heart was heavy, but he forced his voice to remain steady. "We sent the plea," Liren began. "It was sent to the Union with all the codes of our people. They cannot deny they heard it. Our message was clear. Yet no answer has come." The elders exchanged troubled glances. Myra, the only elder who still held hope, leaned forward. "Perhaps the Union is delayed," she said. "Perhaps their ships are far away." But Elder Noran, the oldest, shook his head slowly. His voice was deep but tired. "The Union has fleets in every corner of the galaxy. They have strength beyond what we can imagine. If they had cared to come, they would already be here. Weeks have passed. I fear we have been forgotten." The words weighed heavily on the chamber. For a long moment, no one spoke. Outside, faint sounds of workers trying to rebuild their homes could be heard. Children laughed faintly in the distance, but even that laughter sounded thin, as if carried by fear. Liren looked around the hall. He saw despair in the eyes of the elders. He felt it in his own chest, a shadow pressing down. But he could not let it rule him. He stepped closer to the fire and let his voice rise. "We cannot think only of being forgotten," he said. "If the Union does not come, then someone else may hear. The galaxy is wide. The message still travels. We cannot give up while the stars are listening." The elders murmured, some agreeing faintly, others shaking their heads. "Your words are noble, Liren," said Noran, "but words alone will not stop the Keth. They will come again, and when they do, no one will stand beside us." Liren clenched his hands. He could not argue that truth. The Keth had grown bold. Their ships circled closer with each passing day. It was only a matter of time before they returned in full force. Yet he could not let his people sink into despair. Later that night, Liren walked through the streets of Seren. The city bore scars of fire and broken stone. Families huddled together in damaged homes. Traders no longer filled the marketplace, and guards no longer smiled at their posts. Still, the people tried to live. He saw a mother weaving cloth with torn hands, a group of children carrying stones to help rebuild a wall, and a healer tending to the wounded with little rest. The sight filled him with both pride and pain. These people did not deserve to be abandoned. They were not weak, but they could not face the power of the Keth alone. He stopped to help a young worker lift a beam of wood. "Do not lose your spirit," he told the boy. "Even if the Union does not come, we will find a way." The boy nodded, though his eyes showed doubt. In the following days, more whispers spread across Reiner. People asked one another why no rescue had come. Some said the Union had ignored them because Reiner was small and unimportant. Others said perhaps the message had never reached anyone at all. A few believed the Union had heard, but had chosen silence out of fear of the Keth. Whatever the reason, the weight of abandonment grew heavier. One evening, the council gathered again. This time, the hall was darker. The fire burned weak, and the air carried the smell of smoke from distant villages that had been struck. "We must accept the truth," Noran said at last. "The Union will not come. If they cared for us, their ships would already fill the skies. We are alone." The words caused a murmur of sorrow. Some elders bowed their heads. Others covered their faces in silence. Liren rose to his feet. His voice shook, but he spoke with all the strength he had. If the Union does not come, then let it be so. But I will not believe that no one in this wide galaxy will hear us. There are others beyond the Union. There are those who do not fear the Keth. Our message still drifts across the stars. Until it fades, we must hold on. The elders looked at him. Some with doubt, some with the faintest spark of hope. When the meeting ended, Liren stepped outside. The night air was cold. Above, the stars burned clear and bright, as if listening. He wondered again if somewhere far away, beyond suns and moons, a ship had heard their cry. The people of Reiner went to sleep each night with fear. Yet still, they woke each morning and tried to live. They waited for an answer, even if it never came. And high above, unseen by them, their plea continued its journey, crossing the silent void. It carried not only words but the hope of an entire people. Forgotten by those they trusted, yet still waiting, still holding to the thin thread of faith that someone, somewhere, would come. The dawn over Reiner was quiet at first. A thin mist covered the valleys, and the ruined towers of Saren stood like shadows against the pale sky. People moved slowly through the streets, carrying water and food, trying to keep life alive. Children played near the broken walls, though their laughter carried a sharp edge of fear. Everyone felt the weight of waiting, the endless silence of unanswered pleas. Liren stood on the wall of the city, watching the horizon. His eyes had grown tired from searching the sky each morning. Still, he hoped that today would be different. He leaned against the cold stone, whispering to himself, if no one comes soon, the people will lose all faith. As the sun rose higher, a strange sound filled the air. At first, it was soft, like distant thunder. The guards on the wall straightened. One pointed toward the sky. Do you hear it? Liren's eyes followed the sound. At first, he thought it was only storm clouds gathering. But the sky was clear. Then, faint lines of light began to appear far above. They looked like streaks of fire moving across the heavens. The people in the streets noticed too. Some gasped. Others shouted in alarm. It is the Keth, one man cried. They have come to finish us. Panic spread quickly. Mothers pulled children into their arms. Workers dropped their tools and ran for cover. The memory of raids was too strong, and many believed destruction was about to fall again. But Liren did not run. He kept his eyes fixed on the lights. The formations were different this time. The Keth ships always moved in broken swarms, like hunters circling prey. These streaks of light moved with sharp order. They came in lines, precise and steady. The air trembled as the sound grew louder, like the beating of giant drums. Liren raised his hand to calm the people near him. Wait. Look carefully. These are not the Keth. The streaks became clearer. Dozens of ships were entering the sky, their shapes heavy and sharp, built with strength rather than beauty. They did not shine with the polished colors of the Union, nor did they bear the cruel marks of the Keth. Their hulls were dark, scarred from battles, yet powerful. The ground shook as the first ship roared overhead. Its engines thundered like a storm, and its shadow stretched across the city. People fell silent, staring upward in awe and fear. Who are they? Myra, the elder, whispered from the wall beside Liren. Her eyes were wide. If they are not Union, and not Keth, then who? Liren's heart raced. He remembered stories told in fragments, warnings spoken by traitors long ago. Tales of a people who came from a harsh and unforgiving world. A people said to be stronger than most could imagine, for they had survived where others could not. His voice was quiet, but the word carried weight. Humans, he said. The people around him turned, their faces filled with confusion. Few had ever seen a human. To many, they were only rumors. Outsiders called them Deathworlders, beings who lived on a planet of storms, predators, and endless struggle. Many feared them, but none could deny their reputation for survival. The great ships did not fire upon the city. Instead, they spread across the sky, forming a protective line. Smaller craft broke away and descended carefully. One ship, larger than the rest, slowed above the plains outside Saren. Its engines glowed bright as it settled upon the ground, sending waves of dust into the air. Crowds gathered at the edge of the city, both fearful and hopeful. Liren walked forward, his steps firm though his chest was tight. If these were truly humans, why had they come? Was it chance, or had they heard the plea of Reiner? The ship's great hatch began to open. A long ramp extended, metal striking the earth with a heavy sound. The people held their breath. Figures appeared in the doorway. Tall, broad, and wrapped in strong armor, the humans stepped out. Their movements were steady, without haste, as if they feared nothing. Their helmets reflected the morning light, hiding their faces until at last the leader removed hers. She was a woman with sharp eyes and weathered skin, a face that had seen battle many times. She looked across the gathered Reinery and then to Liren, who stood at the front. Her voice carried with calm strength. "We heard your call," she said. The words echoed like a promise. The people gasped. Some began to cry, not from fear but from sudden relief. For the first time since the Keth raids began, the sky above Reiner was filled not with shadows of destruction, but with the presence of protectors. Liren bowed his head slightly, not in weakness, but in respect. "We thought no one would come," he said softly. The human commander's eyes did not waver. "We are here now," she replied. And with those words, the tremble in the sky became the tremble of hope. The ship stood like a mountain of steel on the plains outside Saren. Its sides bore scars of old battles, burns from weapons that had struck but not broken it. Dust still drifted around its heavy frame, glowing in the morning light. The people of Reiner gathered at a distance, staring at it with wide eyes. Some whispered in fear, others in wonder. From the great ramp, more humans stepped down. Their boots struck the ground with weight, steady and calm. Their armor was worn but strong, covered in dents and marks that told of many fights. They carried tools and packs, not weapons raised in threat. To the Reinery, they looked unlike any being they had ever seen. Liren stood at the front of the crowd. His heart pounded, but he did not let it show. He had led his people through fear before. Now he would meet these strangers with the same strength. The human commander walked forward. Her helmet hung at her side, and her dark hair moved in the wind. Her face was lined but steady, her eyes sharp yet not unkind. She stopped a few steps away from Liren and looked him straight in the eyes. "You are the leader here?" she asked. "I am Liren," he answered. "I speak for my people." She nodded. "I am Rana, commander of this fleet. We heard your message. It carried far, through space most would not cross. Few answer such calls. But we did." The words sent a ripple through the crowd. The Reinery looked at one another in surprise. For so long, silence had answered their cries. To hear someone speak of their call now felt almost like a dream. "You came when the Union did not," Liren said carefully. Rana's eyes hardened slightly. "We are not the Union. We do not wait for votes or endless talks. We see need, and we act." The crowd murmured again. Some felt relief, others still feared what it meant. The stories of humans were mixed. Some said they were saviors, others called them dangerous. Yet here they stood, not as raiders, not as conquerors, but as people who had come when no one else would. One of the younger Reinery, a boy named Dallin, stepped forward before his mother could hold him back. He looked up at the humans with wide eyes. "Will you fight the Keth?" he asked. The humans turned to him, and some even smiled faintly. Rana crouched so her gaze met the boy's. "Yes," she said. "If they come again, we will fight. Not because we seek war, but because no one should face it alone. The boy's mother pulled him back, but tears filled her eyes. She whispered, "Thank you." Rana rose again and looked back at Liren. "We will need to see your defenses, what remains of them. We will work with you to rebuild. The Keth will not stop unless they are faced. Do you trust us?" Liren hesitated only a moment. His people had been abandoned by those they trusted most. But now, standing before him, were beings who had crossed the void simply because they had heard a cry for help. He placed his hand across his chest and bowed his head. "Yes. We will trust." The days that followed changed Saren. The humans did not stay inside their ships. They came out into the city, working side by side with the Rhinery. They repaired walls, set up strong barriers, and shared supplies from their stores. Their food was strange but filling, and their machines worked with speed and power unlike anything the Rhinery had seen. Children followed the humans as they worked, fascinated by their strength. The humans laughed and let the children watch, sometimes even showing them how their tools worked. For the first time in many months, real laughter returned to the streets. Liren watched with growing respect. These were not cold saviors. They were people who lived simply, worked hard, and treated the Rhinery as equals. They did not speak of honor or reward. They only acted, as if helping was the most natural thing. At night, the humans set guards at the city's edge. Their eyes scanned the sky, always ready. They seemed tireless, as if their world had trained them never to rest. Liren stood beside Rana one evening as the stars shone above. "Why do you do this?" he asked her. "We are strangers to you. The Union does not care for us. Why do you?" Rana looked at the horizon, her face calm. "Because we know what it means to be left alone. On our world, no one survives by standing apart. We survive by standing together. We came because it was right." Liren felt the weight of her words. For the first time, he believed that perhaps the tide could turn. His people were no longer alone. The Deathworlders had appeared, and with them came a strength that the Keth had never faced. The days after the humans' arrival brought change to Saren. The city that had once been filled only with fear and despair now carried new sounds: hammering of tools, humming of machines, and the voices of people working together. The Rhinery were not used to such strong, direct energy. The humans moved quickly, wasting no time, and their presence lifted the spirit of everyone around them. At sunrise, Liren walked through the marketplace where repairs were underway. Broken stalls were being rebuilt with new metal frames the humans had provided. Children ran between workers, carrying small pieces of wood or metal as if they were part of the great effort. A human engineer named Vero crouched to show two young Rhinery how to use a simple cutting tool. They watched with wide eyes as sparks flew, their faces glowing with excitement instead of fear. Liren smiled at the sight. For many months, the children of Reiner had known only shadows. Now they were learning curiosity again. He turned and found Rana, the human commander, giving instructions to a group of her crew and Rhinery builders. She stood tall and calm, pointing at damaged towers and explaining how they could be reinforced with strong metal beams. "You work as if this is your home," Liren said when he approached her. Rana glanced at him and then at the city. "For now, it is," she replied simply. "If we mean to keep your people safe, we must live as you live. That is the only way." Liren nodded. He had never seen leaders of other races act in such a way. Union officials came with speeches and rules. The humans came with their hands and tools. They asked for nothing, yet gave everything they had. The Rhinery soon discovered the humans had strange habits. They laughed even in hard labor. They ate quickly, sharing food with whoever was near. They competed with each other over who could carry the heaviest stones or repair walls the fastest, turning even difficult work into something lively. At first, the Rhinery did not understand. But slowly, they began to join in. The city felt alive in a way it had not for years. One evening, after a long day of work, a group of humans and Rhinery sat around a fire outside the walls. They shared stories. The Rhinery spoke of their lost villages and their struggles under the Keth raids. The humans spoke of their own world, a place of storms, predators, and fierce seasons. The Rhinery listened in awe. They began to understand why these Deathworlders were different. Life on such a harsh world had made them strong, but also loyal. They valued unity above all because it was the only way to survive. That night, Liren sat beside Rana as the fire burned low. "My people trust you more each day," he said quietly. "But the Keth will return. When they see you here, they will come in force." Rana's gaze did not waver. "Let them come," she said. "They believe fear is a weapon. We have seen worse than fear." The next morning, the warning came. Scouts reported Keth ships moving toward Reiner. Their black hulls were cutting through the sky like blades. Panic spread through the city, but the humans acted with calm speed. "Positions," Rana ordered, her voice steady. The human fleet lifted into the sky. Engines roared, shaking the ground. The Rhinery gathered on the walls, watching as the strange ships of their new allies formed a shield above the city. The Keth came fast, their weapons flashing. But the humans met them head-on. The battle lit the heavens. Fire streaked across the sky as ships clashed. Human vessels moved with discipline, their formations tight and unyielding. The Keth swarmed wildly, as they always did, but this time they were not facing frightened prey. The people of Reiner watched with wide eyes as one Keth ship exploded in a ball of fire. Another was forced down, crashing into the distant plains. Cheers rose from the walls of Seren. For the first time, they saw the Keth being driven back. Liren stood at the highest tower, his eyes fixed on the battle. His heart raced with both fear and pride. "They fight as if they are storms themselves," he whispered. Hours passed before the sky grew quiet again. The last of the Keth ships fled into the darkness, leaving behind only smoke and falling debris. The human fleet returned, some ships scarred but none destroyed. The city erupted with cheers as the first Victoria sounds carried across Reiner in many years. When Rana stepped down from her ship, the people crowded around her. They touched her armor with reverence, their eyes shining with gratitude. Liren moved through the crowd and met her gaze. "You have given us hope," he said. Rana shook her head. "We have given nothing more than what you already had. You only needed to see that you were not alone." Her words stayed with him. That night, as the stars shone above Reiner, the people gathered together. They sang songs of survival and hope. For the first time, their voices carried strength instead of sorrow. The humans had brought more than protection. They had brought unity. Together, Rhinery and humans had stood against the Keth and survived. And together, they would face whatever came next. The sun rose over Reiner, casting golden light across the rebuilt walls of Seren. The city looked different now. Scars remained, but they no longer carried fear alone. New structures, strengthened by human design, stood tall alongside old towers. The people moved with purpose, working and repairing, their steps lighter than they had been for months. The presence of the humans had given them something more than protection, they had given them hope. From the city walls, Liren watched the horizon. Scouts reported that the Keth were gathering again, their ships appearing in the distance like dark shadows against the sky. But this time, the people of Reiner did not panic. They had seen what could be done when fear met strength. The humans were ready, and so were the Rhinery. Rana and her team had organized the defenses with precision. Each Rhinery who wished to help had a task, from supplying the humans with equipment to reinforcing walls and towers. The children stayed safe inside the inner city, but they watched from windows and rooftops as their elders and allies prepared for battle. There was a sense of unity that had never existed before. "Today will be different," Liren said to Myra as they moved along the walls. Today, we do not wait for help. We act with it. Myra nodded slowly. I see it in their eyes, Liren. The humans fight as if nothing can stop them. Perhaps now our people can see it too. The Keth arrived in force, their ships black and jagged. They circled the city, ready to strike. But the humans had learned quickly from the first encounter. Their ships formed a defensive line, blocking the Keth from entering the atmosphere. Small craft darted forward, intercepting raiders before they could reach the walls. The Rhinery watched in awe as the battle unfolded above them. This time, the humans did not fight alone. Rhinery volunteers guided the small craft, carried supplies, and manned observation posts. Children cheered from the city streets, waving banners their parents had made, while the adults coordinated from every tower and platform. It was no longer a city under siege, it was a city prepared to defend itself, united with the strength of the Deathworlders. Explosions lit the sky, but the humans moved with steady control. Each attack from the Keth was met with countermeasures, traps, and precise strikes. Their endurance was remarkable. While the Keth became chaotic and disorganized, the humans adapted, adjusting their movements to protect both themselves and the Rhinery below. Liren realized that this was why the stories called them Deathworlders. They were shaped to survive in the harshest conditions and to face the most impossible odds without hesitation. Hours passed. Slowly, the tide began to turn. One by one, Keth ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. The humans remained vigilant, scanning every approach and blocking every attempt to break through. The people of Rhiner cheered when they saw the first Keth ship crash into the plains, its flames rising high into the sky. The city felt the first real sense of victory in many months. Liren moved among the people, shouting encouragement, offering hands to lift beams, and helping wherever he could. The Rhinery began to understand the lesson the humans had silently taught them: courage was not in waiting for salvation but in standing with it, acting as one with those who came to protect them. By evening, the battle had ended. The Keth had fled, their fleet scattered and broken. Smoke rose in the distance where ships had fallen, but Saren remained. The city that had once trembled under fear now stood resilient, surrounded by the calm but watchful humans. Rana stepped down from her ship, her face showing the faint marks of battle but her posture strong. Liren met her at the base of the ramp. "You have changed everything," he said. "We did what needed to be done," she replied simply. "You and your people did not hide. You learned quickly, and together we turned the tide. That is why you survived." The Rhinery gathered around, some cheering, some crying with relief. Myra placed a hand on Liren's shoulder. "Your people will never forget this," she said softly. Liren nodded. "Nor should they. This day proves that fear is not stronger than courage. Unity is what defeats darkness." That night, the city celebrated quietly. Fires burned safely in the squares. People shared food and laughter. The children played under the stars, and the adults spoke of hope and strength. The humans joined them, not as strangers, but as allies and friends. Above, the stars shone clearly, a reminder that the galaxy was wide and full of unknowns. Yet the people of Rhiner no longer feared the vast emptiness. They had learned that when courage meets action, even the darkest threat could be faced. They had seen it in the Deathworlders, and they had felt it themselves. Tomorrow, the Keth might return, but the Rhinery were no longer alone. The tide had turned, and with the humans by their side, they would face the future with strength and unity. The sky over Rhiner glowed with the light of dawn. The city of Saren stood taller than ever, its repaired walls gleaming under the first rays of sun. The people walked through streets that no longer felt broken, carrying tools, food, and hope. The presence of the humans had changed everything. They had shown the Rhinery what it meant to fight together, to rebuild together, and to never face the darkness alone. Liren stood at the highest tower, looking out toward the horizon. He could see movement in the distance, distant dots growing larger as they approached. Scouts had reported ships moving through space, coming faster than anything the Rhinery had seen. But there was no panic this time. The people of Reiner were ready, and the humans were at their side. Rana walked beside him. "They are coming," she said. Her voice was calm but carried weight. "All of them." Liren turned his gaze to her. "The Keth?" "No," she said. "Our fleet. The full human fleet. They will not leave any threat unchecked." The people of Reiner began to notice the growing shapes in the sky. Dozens of ships appeared, some heavily scarred, others freshly built. Their engines roared, sending tremors through the ground. They carried the signs of many battles, of survival in the harshest worlds, yet they moved as one. The Rhinery could hardly believe their eyes. They had waited for help from the Union, and it had never come. Now, the saviors were here, not one or two ships, but a fleet strong enough to face the galaxy itself. Children pointed and shouted in joy. Families pressed together, staring at the vast line of ships. Liren's heart swelled with pride and awe. The humans had already taught them courage, but now they were witnessing true strength. Rana raised her hand, signaling the fleet to slow and descend toward the plains near Saren. Each ship settled carefully, engines glowing, dust and small stones rising with every landing. The human warriors disembarked, carrying tools, food, and supplies for the city. They did not rush or demand attention. Instead, they moved with the calm certainty of those who knew their purpose. The Keth, seeing the fleet, had long fled the system. Their confidence had been broken by the humans before, and now they faced a force they could not hope to challenge. Reports from scouts confirmed their retreat. For the first time, Reiner and its people were free from the shadow of fear. Liren stepped forward to greet the newcomers. He felt small in their presence, yet he carried the voice of his people with him. "We are honored," he said, "and grateful for your arrival. We could not have imagined such help." Rana shook her head. "You gave us a chance to do what we do best," she said. "We do not fight for glory. We fight for survival, and for those who cannot fight alone. You showed courage, and that makes all the difference." Other humans moved through the city, meeting the Rhinery, shaking hands and offering smiles. They helped repair walls and set up new defenses, yet they did it quietly, without arrogance. The Rhinery began to see that these were not only warriors but teachers, builders, and friends. That night, the city celebrated. Fires burned in the squares, songs rose into the sky, and the children laughed freely. The Rhinery had learned what it meant to survive, to rebuild, and to stand together. They had seen what courage could accomplish when united with strength. Liren stood with Rana at the edge of the city, looking at the fleet that now filled the sky. "Your people are incredible," he said. "I have never seen anything like it. You have changed our world forever." Rana smiled faintly. "Perhaps we have changed it. But you changed it too. You stood when others might have fallen. You worked with us, trusted us, and learned to act as one. That is why today is possible." The Rhinery looked up at the ships, realizing that hope had become reality. For years, they had sent messages into the void, unsure if anyone would hear. The Union had ignored them, but the humans had listened. They had come, not for reward, not for power, but because it was right. In the days that followed, Saren grew stronger than before. The humans trained the Rhinery in methods of defense and repair, showing them how to face future threats. The people learned quickly, inspired by the determination and skill of their allies. What had once seemed impossible, standing against the Keth and surviving, was now achievable. Liren spoke to the council and the people in the main square. "Today, we know that courage, unity, and action matter more than fear. Today, we are no longer alone. The galaxy may be wide, and threats may come again, but we are prepared. Together, we can face anything." The crowd cheered, raising their hands to the sky. The humans stood among them, not as strangers, but as equals, their presence a permanent symbol of strength and hope. The fleet that had arrived was more than machines of war, it was a reminder that action, courage, and unity could change everything. For the first time, the people of Reiner felt safe. For the first time, they knew that even in the vast emptiness of space, there were those who would hear a call for help and answer it without hesitation. The galaxy would never forget the day the Deathworlders arrived, and Reiner had survived.